Speaking of an unraveling off season, how's Pete Alonso doing right now? Hello, polar bear. You feeling good? Feeling happy? You loving Scott Boras? You getting called by all of Boras's minions saying, keep calm, it's all good. We've got you covered, baby. We took care of Soto. Now we're really focused on you. Well, we're going to focus on Bregman too, but we can focus on both. Yes, we took care of Blake Snell. Yes, there are a bunch of first basemen who've already signed. I agree with you, Pete. Don't you worry, though, because wait till you hear what I'm going to do for you. Scott Boras has a bit of a problem, doesn't he? So, to handle that problem, Scott Boras came out through the media, through sources, wink, wink, and Scott Boras, apparently with teams, and there are myriad interested teams. Bob Nightingale of USA Today wants you to believe, I can't imagine why, that there could be 8 teams interested in Pete Alonso, jumping all over each other to sign Pete Alonso. Does this sound familiar to the Boras 4 last year who didn't sign till much later and didn't get nearly what they expected or wanted? Somehow we're supposed to believe that Scott Boras is telling teams that Pete Alonso is Prince Fielder. Raise your hand if you remember Prince Fielder. Prince Fielder signed a 9-year, $214 million contract. Prince Fielder could rake. Now, Pete Alonso's had good numbers. His season last year, nowhere near what he did his rookie season. He has not been the player he was since his rookie year. Some people are saying that rookie year could have been the JBE, the juiced ball era. Some people are remembering his huge home run that catapulted the Mets to a postseason series victory when they were about to be eliminated. You remember? Seems like Scott Boras overplayed the Pete Alonso hand. The natural fit for him has always been back with the Mets. And for me, it was always the Mets. In order to be better, you bring Alonso back. You've added Soto. You've added to your lineup. If Soto is only replacing Alonso, you get the incremental difference, but not enough to make you better than even someone in the National League East. Maybe even 2 teams in the National League East. Why is it that the Mets and Alonso haven't come to an agreement? I think it's clear now. Because Scott wants a number of years for a 30-year-old first baseman who's trending down and will have to be a DH soon, when they likely already have a 15-year DH soon, that if you have Alonso and Soto deep into their 30s together on the roster, how does that work? The answer is it doesn't. So if you're David Stearns and you're Stephen Cohn of the Mets, you're trying to get Pete Alonso on a large AAV short-term deal. But Scott Boras is having some PTSD about that. He doesn't want to go the high AAV short-term because he did that with his players last year, and it may not work out, though it did for Chapman, who got the crazy extension. It did for Blake Snell, who pitched his way into a huge deal from the endless spigot that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. Jordan Montgomery bailed on him. He doesn't want Pete Alonso to be in that same position. Frankly, Cody Bellinger, one of those other core 4, now that he's been traded to the Yankees, he still doesn't have the extension. He's on the original short-term high AV deal that he managed to squeak out of the Cubs. The best option here is for the Mets to get him, but here's what Boras is counting on. Boras is counting on the Toronto Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox being despondent beyond repair for being bridesmaids, especially the Blue Jays, where the Red Sox at least were able to trade for Crochet. The Blue Jays have not done anything major this offseason. They're always in conversations for free agents. Do you think it's a coincidence in any way, shape, or form that part of what the report was yesterday is that the 8 teams include the Blue Jays and the Red Sox? This is what Boras does. He makes stuff up. He makes up interest in teams because he wants Stephen Cohn to panic. He wants Stephen Cohn to believe that another team is going to sign Alonso and leave him with nothing. Stephen Cohn is not going to be bullied by Boras. He already took care of Boras with the Soto deal. And if Stephen Cohn is smart and good at what he does, query, we don't know. He's speaking to Scott Boras now. and saying, I gave you the record. You have erased Ohtani. You got 15 years. You got an AAV of 51. You got an opt-out that could bring the AAV to 55. You've got your victory, Scott. You're not getting another one with Alonso. He's going to go in the category of the players you ignore, you mislead, and then you underperform for. And the sooner that you're ready to embrace that reality, the sooner that we will get Pete Alonso signed. I think that would be a phenomenal conversation to have with Mr. Boras. I don't know that Steve's had it yet because it's only January 8th. Spring training doesn't start for 6 weeks. There's no reason in any way to give in. From a management standpoint, this is the most important part of the offseason. Players are the ones getting desperate. You cannot allow yourself to get desperate as management, as a GM. You have to be willing to go to spring training with what you have. And if players budge off their demands, then you can start picking them off, signing them one at a time. But the players, as spring training comes closer, they get more and more pressure from their families. Are we going to Florida? Are we going to Arizona? What are we going to be doing for spring training? What kind of schools do we need to be looking at for our kids once the season starts? All of these issues are weighing in on the player. And what you're waiting for is for the player to call his agent and say, I give up. Take that offer. I need to have certainty. And then the agent, Scott Boras, says, don't be ridiculous. We've got you, Pete. It's interesting to see who blinks in the months of January and February. We are spoken to about this all the time as front offices. Presidents of teams get together, all of us making sure, not colluding, just making sure we're good, right? Yeah, we'll go to spring training as is. We're getting ready for arbitration with our guys, and we will be ready to go in February.